Hey guys, welcome back to another video. My name is Jill and today I'm going to be doing my long-awaited bookshelf tour, so let's get started. So this is by far my most requested video ever. So many people have been asking me to do this and now I finally have the time and energy to do it, and plus my shelves are finally like clean enough, because what you guys don't know is that the portion that I film in front of is always like really pretty, but my other shelves are just a complete train wreck. But I took the time yesterday and I cleaned everything and I dusted everything and everything's all nice and pretty. So I know I'm going to get this question, so I'm just going to answer it now. My bookshelves are the Billy bookshelves from IKEA in the color black. So just one last thing before I get started. Since this video is probably going to be hella long, and because my bookshelves are organized by genre, if you didn't know, they are organized by genre, I'm going to be putting timestamps down in the description box. So if you are one of those people who just hates contemporary with a passion and you think to yourself, I do not want to see what contemporary books that this chick owns, then you can skip past that part. If you're one of those people that only wants to see my classic books, then you can just skip to that portion. Anyway, I just thought that it would be like easier for everyone if I did that. And yeah, before I keep rambling, I'm just going to get started and I'm going to do like a basic overview and then I'll get into the specific in-depth tour. So yeah, let's just get into it. Start off with my Harry Potter books. I feel like everyone starts with this shelf. First off, just the things that I have before the books. I have a bunch of pop figures. I have a Dumbledore pop figure, then I have a little Hagrid, then I have a Harry Potter pop figure, then a golden snitch, then I have a pop figure of Newt Scamander, then I have a pop figure of a little Niffler, and then I have my Deathly Hallows necklace. Now onto the books. I'm not going to completely disassemble this shelf because I'm pretty sure we know what the Harry Potter books look like. But first off, I have over here the illustrated edition of Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, then the illustrated edition of Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, then I have the complete set of the American hardcover editions of Harry Potter. I have Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, and Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. And then I have the original screenplay of Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. And then over there at the end I have the Hogwarts Library. So this contains a bunch of textbooks from Hogwarts. That includes Quidditch Through the Ages, Tales of Beedle the Bard, and Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. Next up I have the start of my fantasy books, which is by far my biggest section on my bookshelves. So right here I have a little masquerade mask. Then I have a playing card from the Six of Crows duology. This is Nina. Then I have a Game of Thrones House Stark coaster that says Winter is Coming. I love this so much. First I have Frostblood by Ellie Blake, Daughter of Smoke and Bone, Days of Blood and Starlight, and Dreams of Gods and Monsters, all by Laini Taylor. Then I have Steelheart and Firefight by Brandon Sanderson, Mistborn, The Well of Ascension, and The Hero of Ages, all by Brandon Sanderson, Shadow and Bone, Siege and Storm, and Ruin and Rising by Leigh Bardugo. And then Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom, also by Leigh Bardugo. And I have a few sci-fi books that I will get into later. Now onto the next shelf. Again, before the books, I have this amazing quote from the Queen of Shadows. They joined hands, so the world ended and the next one began. Then I have a candle I got from one of my owl crates. That is Selena's Cake. And over here in the corner, I have this light up J. First up, I have the Assassin's Blade, Throne of Glass, Crown of Midnight, Heir of Fire, Queen of Shadows, Empire of Storms, A Court of Thorns and Roses, and A Court of Mist and Fury, all by Miss Sarah J. Maas. Then I have the Demon King, the Exiled Queen, the Grey Wolf Throne, and the Crimson Crown by Cinda Williams Chima. Then I have the Warrior Heir, the Wizard Heir, the Dragon Heir, The Enchanter Heir, and The Sorcerer Heir, all by Cinda Williams Chima. Then I have The Wrath and the Dawn, and The Rose and the Dagger, both by Renee Audier. So first up, I have this sticker that says, I'd rather die on an adventure than live standing still. And then I have 3 Shadowhunter tattoos that I don't want to use because they're so pretty. First up, I have A Monster Calls by Patrick Ness, Finnegan of the Rock by Melina Marchetta. Then I have The Winner's Curse and The Winner's Crime, both by Marie Rutkowski. A Darker Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab. Fallen Kingdoms by Morgan Rhodes. The Kiss of Deception, Heart of Betrayal, and The Beauty of Darkness, all by Mary E. Pearson. Clockwork Angel, Clockwork Prince, and Clockwork Princess by Cassandra Clare. Then I have The Bane Chronicles by Cassandra Clare, Sarah Reese Brennan, and Maureen Johnson. Then I have City of Lost Souls and City of Heavenly Fire, also by Cassandra Clare. And yes, I don't have the first 4 books in the Immortal Instrument series. Then I have Tales from Shadowhunter Academy by Cassandra Clare, Sarah Reese Brennan, Maureen Johnson, and Robin Wasserman. And finally, I have Lady Midnight by Cassandra Clare. Now for this shelf down here, we are still in fantasy, and I don't really have any decoration down here except for that pink candle over there. So I have An Ember in the Ashes and A Torch Against the Night, both by Sabaa Tahir, Crown's Game by Evelyn Skye, Queen of the Tearling by Erica Johansson, Vasa in the Night by Sarah Porter, Nevernight by Jay Kristoff, Legacy of Kings by Eleanor Herman, The Star-Touched Queen by Roshani Chosky, Snow Like Ashes and Ice Like Fire, both by Sarah Rosh, Of Fire and Stars by Audrey Colthurst, The Reader by Tracy Shee, This Savage Song by Victoria Schwab, 3 Dark Crowns by Kendar Blake, Furthermore by Tahira Mafi, I Am Princess X by Cherry Priest. And I have actually in opposite order The Raven King, Blue Lily Lily Blue, The Dream Thieves, and The Raven Boys, all by Maggie Stiefvater. Then over here in the corner, I just have Outlander by Diana Gabaldon. I didn't really know where else to put it, and so I just had room there, so I just put it there. I apologize if this camera angle is a little bit awkward, but now I'm going to be getting into my retellings shelves. So I have The Lightning Thief, The Sea of Monsters, The Titan's Curse, The Battle of the Labyrinth, and The Last Olympian. Then I have The Lost Hero, The Son of Neptune, Mark of Athena, House of Hades, and finally The Blood of Olympus. Magnus Chase and the Gods of Asgard, The Sword of Summer, and The Hammer of Thor, both by Rick Riordan. Then I have my gorgeous reed folded thing that I love so much, and this is actually a copy of Jane Eyre. Then I have a Splinter, Unhinged, Ensnared, and Untamed, all by A.G. Howard. And I also have Roseblood by A.G. Howard. Then finally, I have The Looking Glass Wars by Frank Better. And now moving on to the next shelf. This shelf is a combination of sci-fi and retellings. So just right here, I have 2 pops from Star Wars. So I have BB-8 and then I have Chewbacca. I have this little heartless bookmark, and I have this Snow White little charm bracelet thing. So just to keep it consistent, I'm going to start over here with the retellings. So I have Dorothy Must Die, The Wicked Will Rise, Yellow Brick War, and Dorothy Must Die Stories, all by Danielle Page. Then in opposite order, I have Stars Above, Winter, Ferris, Cress, Scarlet, and Cinder, all by Marissa Meyer. Then I have actually 2 copies of Heartless. I have the original cover right here, and behind it I have the white cover. And now I'm going to start getting into my sci-fi books. First off, I have 1,000 Pieces of You and 10,000 Skies Above You, all by Claudia Gray. But These Broken Stars, This Shattered World, and Their Fractured Light, all by Amy Coffran and Megan Spooner. Then I have Illuminae and Gemina, both by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. Finally, I have Replica by Lauren Oliver. Then over here, I just have those few sci-fis that I skipped over earlier. First up, I have The 1,000th Floor by Catherine McGee, The Fifth Wave, The Infinite Sea, and The Last Star, all by Rick Yancey. And I have The Scorpion Rules by Erin Bow. So now on to my dystopian books. First off, I have my little Divergent thing right here. Then I have The Maze Runner, The Scorched Trials, The Death Cure, and The Kill Order, all by James Dashner. Then I have Divergent, Insurgent, Allegiant, and 4, all by Veronica Roth. The Hunger Games, Catching Fire, and Mockingjay, all by Suzanne Collins. Then I have Legend, Prodigy, Champion, all by Marie Lu. The Young Elites, The Rose Society, and The Midnight Star, also all by Marie Lu. Shatter Me, Unravel Me, Ignite Me, and Unite Me, all by Tahira Mafi. Then I have The Darkest Minds, Never Fade, In the Afterlight, and Through the Dark, all by Alexandra Bracken. And then finally I have Scythe by Neil Shusterman. Now moving on to this shelf, this is a combination of my continued dystopian and then getting into paranormal. So I have another Masquerade mask right here, and then in the corner over here I have a black candle. First off, I have The Giver by Lois Lowry, The Knife of Never Letting Go, The Ask and the Answer, and Monsters of Men, all by Patrick Ness, First Life by Jenna Showalter, The Forgetting by Sharon Cameron, Red Queen, and Glass Sword, both by Victoria Aveyard. Then I have my pretty white editions of Twilight along with all of the movies except for the first one of the Twilights. I'm not going to take all of these out because literally it takes me like 20 minutes to get these out of this box. And then I have the special 10th anniversary of Twilight, which has the new Life and Death. And then I have The Chemist, also by Stephanie Meyer. Then I have Vampire Academy, Frostbite, Shadow Kiss, Blood Promise, Spirit Bound, and The Last Sacrifice, all by Rochelle Mead. So next I have continued on, I have paranormal and then some thrillers and some horror books, and then at the end there I have the start of my arcs. First up I have These Vicious Masks by Taryn Shankar and Kelly Zegas. Then I have Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children, The Dark Days Club by Allison Goodman, Afterworlds by Scott Westerfeld. Then I have a Crash, Bang, and Gasp, all by Lisa McMahon, Rebel Bell, Miss Mayhem, and Lady Renegades by Rachel Hawkins. Then I have The Diviners by Libba Bray, Unbecoming of Mara Dyer by Michelle Hodkins. Now getting into some thrillers, I have The Incident on the Bridge by Laura McNeil, Last Seen Leaving by Caleb Royrick, Daughter of Deep Silence by Carrie Ryan, Hall by, oh gosh, so I know I'm going to butcher the last name, so I'm not going to try because someone corrected me and I've already forgotten how to say it. The Darkest Corners by Kara Thomas, and then Gone Girl by Gillian Flynn. Now like I said, I have the beginning of my arcs. So first off, I have a list of cages by Robin Rowe. Then I actually have a signed copy of The Sun Is Also a Scar by Nicola Yoon. Then I have And I Darken by Kirsten White. Yeah, and also I get arcs from my local bookstore in case you guys were wondering. I have a ton of them. And I have a Shadow Bright and Burning by Jessica Cluess, Something in Between by Melissa Dela Cruz, The Diabolic by S.J. Kincaid, Flawed, and then Perfect, both by Cecilia Ahern, Boy Robot by Simon Curtis, The Square Root of Summer by Harriet Ruder Hapgood, another copy of Vasa in the Night by Sarah Porter, and I have Genius, the Game by Leopoldo Gout. And down here I have the rest of my arcs. Like I said, I have a ton of arcs. First off, I have Flashfall by Jenny Moyer, Vanishing Girls by Lauren Oliver, and Panic, also by Lauren Oliver, Zero Day by Jan Gansey, This Is Where It Ends by Marique Niekamp. I know I butchered that, I'm sorry. The Rest of Us Just Live Here by Patrick Ness, Wolf by Ryan Grodin, A Whole New World by Liz Broswell, Zeros by Scott Westerfeld, Margot Lanigan, and Deborah Biancotti, The Accident Season by Moira Fowley Doyle, The Proof of Forever by Lexa Hilger, and this is actually the first arc that I got, so I love it so much. And then I have The Cage by Megan Shepherd, 20 Questions for Gloria by Martin Bedford, On the Edge of Gone by Corinne Doivis, The Serpent King by Jeff Zentner, The Keeper of the Mist by Rachel Newman, Into the Dim by Janet B. Taylor, A Drop of Night by Stefan Bachman, Rebel of the Sands by Alwayne Hamilton, The Smell of Other People's Houses by Bonnie Sue Hitchcock, Burning Midnight by Will McIntosh, The Last Place on Earth by Carol Snow, Passenger by Alexandra Bracken, and then Truth Witch by Susan Dennard, Unrivaled by Allison Noel, Ivory and Bone by Julie Eschbau, Julia Vanishes by Catherine Egan, Never Missing, Never Found by Amanda Pannett, The Unexpected Everything by Morgan Matson, Night Speed by Chris Howard, It Wasn't Always Like This by Joy Preble, Tell Me Three Things by Julie Buxbaum, Tell the Wind and Fire by Sarah Reese Brennan, Flamecaster by Cinda Williams Chima, The Land of 10,000 Madonnas by Kate Hedimer, Three Truths and a Lie by Brent Hartinger, Enter Title Here by Rahul Kanakia, The Swan Riders by Aaron Bowe, another copy of Three Dark Crowns by Kendar Blake, and finally It Gets Worse, a collection of essays by Shane Dawson. And finally over here here, this is actually the bottom shelf of the first bookshelf that I showed, but these are just more of my arcs and these are sort of more recent ones. First off, I have The You I've Never Known by Ellen Hopkins, The Inexplicable Logic of My Life by Benjamin Alire Symonds, My Sister Rosa by Steen Larbalestier, History Is All You Left Me by Adam Silvera, Nemesis by Brendan Reichs, The Hidden Memory of Objects by Danielle Mages Amato, and then I have Piper Perish by Kayla Kagan, Bright Smoke Cold Fire by Rosamund Hodge, A Mirror in the Sky by Aditi Khorana, and finally Forever for a Year by B.T. Gottfried. Now I'm going to be moving on to my YA contemporary books. The first thing I have over here is actually my TBR jar challenge jar thing. I was going to do a separate video on this, but I'm sort of like up in the air to whether I'm actually going to do this, so stay tuned for my explanation on this little thing. And then I have this white ceramic jig. Alright, starting off, I have Since You've Been Gone by Morgan Matson, Never Always Sometimes by Adi Alsed, The Strange and Beautiful Sorrows of Ava Lavender by Leslie Walton, All in Pieces by Susan Young, We Were Liars by E. Lockhart, P.S. I Like You by Casey West, and I have I Crawl Through It, Lori O'Brien's History of the Future, and Ask the Passengers, all by A.S. King. Then I have Just One Day, and then Just One Year by Gail Forman, by Stay and Where She Went, also by Gail Forman, Sotto and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe by Benjamin Alire Symonds, I Hate My Selfie, a collection of essays by Shane Dawson, Me Before You by Jojo Moyes, First and Then by Emma Mills, The Perks of Being a Wallflower by Stephen Chbosky, I Am the Messenger, and also The Book Thief, both by Marcus Zuzak. Then I have Code Named Verity by Elizabeth Wine, Between Shades of Grey, and Salt to the Sea, both by Ruta Sepetys, Passion of Dulce by Julie Berry, My Lady Jane by Cynthia Hand, Brody Ashton, and Jodie Meadows, It True Love Gave to Me by a bunch of different authors but edited by Stephanie Perkins. You really can't see that because it's like so pale, but yeah. And now I have the continuation of my contemporary books. So first I have this Sparking Icicles candle, then I have this magnet that says Yay Books, and finally I have this art print that says The Sun Is Also a Star. First up I have I'll Give You the Sun by Jandy Nelson, What Light by Jay Asher, The Female of the Species by Mindy McGinnis, Kids of Appetite by David Arnold, and then Mosquitoland, also by David Arnold, The Fault in Our Stars, Will Grayson, Looking for Alaska, An Abundance of Catherines, and Paper Towns, all by John Green. Then I have Ugly Love by Colleen Hoover, Anna and the French Kiss, Lola and the Boy Next Door, and Isla and the Happily Ever After, all by Stephanie Perkins. Then I have a finished copy of History Is All You Left Me, and More Happy Than Not, both by Adam Silvera. Milk and Honey by Rupi Kaur, I know I butchered that. Simon versus the Homo Sapiens Agenda by Becky Albertalli, Attachments, Landline, Carry On, Fangirl, and Eleanor and Park, all by Rainbow Rowell. Then I have Everything, and a finished copy of The Sun Is Also a Star by Nicola Yu, To All the Boys I've Loved Before, and P.S. I Still Love You by Jenny Han. So the next shelf I have is actually a shrine to Lin-Manuel Miranda. I'm not gonna go through all the specifics of this shelf. If you want me to do a tour of all my Lin-Manuel Miranda stuff, comment that down below, but I'm sort of obsessed, as you can see, and I just love this shelf so much. Then going down just one more, this is just my random crap thing that isn't very interesting, so we're just gonna move on. Now I'm going to get into my children's books. This is a family picture. Then I have this little koala bear, which is a whole story for another day of why I love this thing. Then I have the entire series of Unfortunate Events books. I'm not gonna take them all out. So first off right here I have The Bad Beginning, then The Reptile Room, The Wide Window, The Miserable Mill, The Austere Academy, The Rat Something Elevator, The Vile Village, The Hostile Hospital, The Carnivorous Carnival, The Slippery Slope, The Grim Grotto, The, I can't read that, Penultimate Peril, and then The End. And I have my collection of Roald Dahl, which was my favorite author as a child, so I have Matilda, Danny the Champion of the World, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, Fantastic Mr. Fox, George is a Marvelous Medicine, The Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar and Six More, The Twits, The Magic Finger, Ezio Trot, The Witches, and Going Solo. All of these are, like I said, by Roald Dahl. And I have Inkheart by Cornelia Funk. My best friend Ray Ann actually got this for me for my birthday, so she was really sweet. Then I have The Voyages of Dr. Dolittle, Alex Rider Point Blank, The Invention of Hugo Cabret by Brian Selznick, finally The Complete Chronicles of Narnia by C.S. Lewis. So down here I have my lone 3 nonfiction books. I have Astronomy 101, Into the Storm by Reed Timmer, and The Untold Story of Rasputin by Joseph T. Fuhrman. And now getting back into children's books, the first one I have is The 100 Dresses by Eleanor Estates. I have Chomp, and then Scat, Flush, and Hoot, all by Carl Hyacin. Then I have The Green Book, which I guess would be considered nonfiction. I have The Little Prince by I'm Not Even Gonna Try. Then I have 1 copy of Alice in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll, Charlotte's Web by E.B. White, They're Poets and They Know It, a collection of 30 timeless poems. Then I have Tales of the Greek Heroes by Roger Lasselin Green, Lancelin, I'm sorry, I can't read. Then I have another copy of Alice in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll. And then I have The Jungle Book by Rudyard Kipling. Then I have the pop-up version of Oh, the Places You'll Go by Dr. Seuss. Then I actually found my original copy of Inkheart, so now I have 2, but you know, you can never have too many copies of one of your favorite childhood books. Alright, we are almost done. I'm going to now move on to my classic bookshelf. So the first shelf that I have up here is actually my Shakespeare shelf. So I have a beautiful edition of King Lear, and then I have the complete works by William Shakespeare. And then I have a bunch of Folger editions. I have The Merchant of Venice, Julius Caesar, Henry V, The Comedy of Errors, Hamlet, Twelfth Night, and Othello. Again, these are all Shakespeare plays, but then I also have Uncle Vanya by Anton Chekhov, which was a play I was in a few years ago. Then I have my unread classic shelf, or like basically unread. I've read a few of these, but most of these are unread. I have a picture from one of my really good friends of him looking ridiculous. Then I have a little Lord of the Rings pin. Then I have The Fellowship of the Ring by J.R.R. Tolkien. And no, I have not read this yet. I have The Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger. Aristotle's Poetics, A Mathematician's Lament by Paul Lockhart. The Meno by Plato. Emma by Jane Austen. Anna Karenina by Leo Tolstoy. Then I have The Odyssey and also The Iliad by Homer. Then I have the New Oxford Annotated Bible. And I have Aristotle's Politics. Then I have 1984 by George Orwell. The Nicomachean Ethics by Aristotle. Then I have The Last Days of Socrates by Plato. Then I have the 3 Theban Plays by Sophocles. And then I have the Orestia by I'm Not Going to Try. And then I have Dracula by Bram Stoker. Next up I have my favorite classic shelf. So first off I have this beautiful edition of A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens, which is my favorite classic ever. And then actually if you flip it over, you actually get Great Expectations by Charles Dickens, which I've also read and loved. And then I have my original annotated version of Tale of Two Cities from school. Then I have To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. Democracy in America by Alex de Tocqueville. Lord of the Flies by William Golding. Animal Farm by George Orwell. The Adventures of Robin Hood by Roger Lancelin Green. My Antonia by Willa Cathy. Count of Monte Cristo by Alexander Dumas. The Scarlet Letter by Nathaniel Hawthorne. My original annotated copy of Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. Then I have my original annotated version of Great Expectations by Charles Dickens. And I have The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. My annotated copy of Crime and Punishment by Fyodor Dostoevsky. And then I have the political writings of John Locke. I have Northanger Abbey by Jane Austen. Then I have my pretty edition of Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. And finally, I have the poetry of Emily Dickinson. Next up, I have mostly literature classics. So first up, I have this little Russian doll that was given to me by one of my really good friends. First off, I have The Illustrated Adventures of Sherlock Holmes by Arthur Conan Doyle. Then I have a collection of stories by Edgar Allan Poe. Johnny Tremaine by Esther Forbes. The Metamorphosis by Franz Kafka. Sir Gawain and the Green Knight by J.R.R. Tolkien. Treasure Island by Robert Louis Stevenson. Magician's Nephew. The Last Battle. And The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, all by C.S. Lewis. One Day in the Life of Ivan Denisovich by Alexander Solzhenitsyn. can't say that. A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. The Miracle Worker by William Gibson. The Old Man and the Sea by Ernest Hemingway. Walden and Civil Disobedience by Henry David Thoreau. The Canterbury Tales by Geoffrey Chaucer. Idylls of the King by Alfred Lord Tennyson. The Wind in the Willows by Kenneth Grahame. Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. Utopia by Thomas More. Beowulf. Translation by Seamus Heaney. Then I have The Aeneid by Virgil. Great American Short Stories by a variety of different authors. Out of the Silent Planet by C.S. Lewis. Classical Gods and Heroes, Myths as Told by the Ancient Authors, translated by Rhoda A. Hendrick. Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury. Finally, All Creatures Great and Small by James Herriot. And finally, we are on my final shelf of this bookshelf tour. This continues my sort of literature classic and then goes into some more history slash philosophy based things. First off, I have A Medicine for Melancholy by Ray Bradbury, and one of my good friends gave this to me for Christmas this year. The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien. The Song of Roland translated by Robert Harrison. The Red Badge of Courage by Stephen Crane. The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn by Mark Twain. The Chosen by Chaim Potok. Billy Budd by Herman Melville. Portable Greek Historians, edited by M.I. Finley. This book killed me. Plutarch's Greek Lives. Selected Essays, Lectures, and Poems by Ralph Waldo Emerson. Communist Manifesto by Karl Marx and Frederick Engels. The Federalist Papers by Alexander Hamilton, James Madison, and John Jay.
Hamilton wrote the other 51.
A Documentary History of the United States. The Era of the French Revolution. The Narrative Life of Frederick Douglass by Frederick Douglass. Reflections on the Revolution in France by Edmund Burke. The Abolition of Man by C.S. Lewis. Capitalism and Freedom by Milton Friedman. Leisure, the Basis of Culture by Joseph Piper. Small is Beautiful, Economics as If People Mattered by E.F. Schumacher. Discourse on the Origin of Inequality by Jean-Jacques Rousseau. And I have a bunch of Latin texts. Basically, in my 5th year of Latin, we translated some of these. So this is Cicero, the Pro Archia Poeta Oratio. And then I have the Aeneid by Virgil in Latin. So as you can see, it's in Latin. And then I have a collection of lyrical poetry by Catullus and Horace. So there you guys have it. That was my bookshelf tour. I hope you guys all enjoyed. That literally took me 2.5 hours to film. Oh my gosh, it took such a long time. If you enjoyed, please give this video a like, comment down below anything you want to talk about, subscribe if you're new here. I have my Goodreads, Twitter, personal Instagram, and Bookstagram all linked down below for you guys. And yeah, thanks again so much for watching. I'll see you guys later in my next video. Bye!